Hello, class. Today we are diving into two fundamental principles that bring animation to life. These principles are slow in, slow out, and squash and stretch. We start in Illustrator with very clearly labeled layers. Here's the ball in the background. We're going to save it as a Adobe Illustrator file. Then we're going to open Animate. We're going to create a new file, a character animation, and make sure to do 24 frames per second. You can ignore details like width and height, but make sure Action Script is selected. Now press Command R or Import to Stage, and we're going to grab our Adobe file. In this menu, just make sure all layers are selected, convert layers to Animate, and then set the stage to Illustrator Artboard. Now you can see how the two layers imported into Animate just fine. Now remember, we set this up at 24 frames per second. 24 frames per second is the standard frame rate because it is the lowest frame rate that you can still provide satisfactory quality that can give an illusion of fluid motion. You can see right here where 1 second is exactly where 24 frames hits. In our timeline, you can see frames. They're also known as cells. Now I'm going to hold Option and pull this timeline out to the 19th frame, making this one long frame. While video is always 24 frames a second, animators do something called editing on the twos. Obviously, if you have more frames, you can do faster action and more detail, but for what we're doing today, we're going to edit on the twos. Hold Control and then select Convert to Frame by Frame and then every other frame. Now the ball is copied into each one of these cells, which are 2 frames apiece. Now I want to see my background here, so what I'm going to do is hold Option and click my background layer and drag it out to that same line. Now I'm going to lock that layer. Now I'm going to pull my rulers down so I can mark where my ball is dropping from and where it's going to land. Now here comes the fun part. This is where we determine how to do our time and motion. So right now I'm going to show you the wrong way to do it. Our timing is dictated by the distance between one ball and the next. I'm drawing guides that show an equal distance between each ball. 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. And then I'm going to go up on the other side, which will be 11, 13, 15, 17, and 19. Now I'm going into each one of these keyframes and moving the ball into its next position. These were equal distant apart, so I want you to notice something when this is done. What you're about to see is why we use ease in and out. Ease in and out, or also known as slow in, slow out, is essential in animation to replicate the natural acceleration and deceleration of real-world movements. Now that it's done, I'm going to turn on looping and see how it plays. See how that movement just doesn't look right? It's very mechanical. This is the reason we use ease in out, and this is how you do it. Now I'm going to redraw my guides, but instead of putting my 3rd frame, 7th frame, in between, I'm going to put them closer to the start and stop points. In other words, ease in, ease out, slow in, slow out as you move back and forth. Then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Now I just need to move the ball on the 3rd frame and the 7th frame, and then on the other side, the corresponding frames. And now, when this is done, you'll see how much more fluid the movement is. We're just going to fast forward through the actual moving of it. And now it plays. Now it definitely does have more natural action, but there's something wrong. It just doesn't look like a real ball. This is where squash and stretch comes in. Squash and stretch is a key animation principle that gives objects a sense of weight and elasticity to enhance the perception of impact and movement. When I start with the 1st frame, I don't change a thing. The ball is static. It is stopped because that's how gravity works. When things go up, they stop for a second. So on the 2nd one, we're going to start showing that movement. So we're going to stretch it a little bit. Now, obviously in real life, it doesn't really stretch, but that's what animation does. Our eyes will feel that that movement is more impactful because of this. So now we get into that 5th frame, and it's really moving now. So the important part of this is keep the volume of the ball the same. So every little bit you stretch it one way, you got to squash it the other way so it looks like the same ball. That's going to be the hardest part of this lesson for you. And then we just go back up. It's going to, at its main impact on 9 and 11, It's hitting the ground, squashing, and then bouncing back up. It's going to spring back up into a little stretch, and then we're going to keep stretching it. When we're almost at the last frame, it's almost to its form, and then it stops in the air, being a normal ball again. A lot of animation is about exaggeration, so when you think about a ball being dribbled, it squashes when it hits the ground, emphasizing the impact. As it rebounds, it stretches back up, capturing the force and speed of the bounce. This technique makes the basketball's motion appear more fluid and energetic. Now let's use Animate's tools in order to create a background. So I'm going to take the background and move it all the way over to the right. And then on this last keyframe, I'm going to select it and then move it all the way over to the left. And now, with them both selected in the timeline, I will go to this thing called Classic Tween. Now it will ask you to turn these into a symbol. We'll cover what a symbol is in a future classroom. The Classic Tween does all the math and all the stuff we did on the basketball to where it moves on its own. All right, this is looking pretty good, but there's a little problem we have. See this little edge right here? When this background was created, I did not think about looping it. We have to think outside of the box here, and we need to make this looped where it works from one side to the other. We're going to copy this one side, move it onto the other side, and then flip it horizontally. You flip it horizontally, so one edge is going to end up on the other edge. And since it's animating in a loop, the other edge is going to loop on one. Therefore, you have one continuous look at it. And now all you have to do is redo the Classic Tween the same way we did before by moving the first frame all the way to the right and the last frame all the way to the left. And now you have one continuous loop. For one last embellishment, what we're going to do is add a little sound that I picked up off Adobe. And it's amazing what sound can do to give your animations a real kind of touch of reality. So I'm just going to place this right in here, just going to import it right in and place it to the stage. And there you have it, a bouncing ball using ease in and out with squash and stretch and a little sound and a moving background.